Many people have heard the phrase, scream like a banshee. But have you ever heard a banshee hum? A few years ago, my girlfriend Rachel and I were taking a boisterous hike through a noisy trail in West Virginia. Our special trail was somewhere near Shenandoah State Park, and Rachel would take me every few weeks to get the stress of day-to-day life out of my system. I loved those hikes with her. The birds sang a cacophony of chirps and songs that created a symphony of serenity for us. Each step was met with the soft crunch of fallen branches and leaves. Life was truly harmonious on these days. My fingers laced with Rachel's, and I hummed to myself as we walked. I hummed a little tune many people would recognize, Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac. As I met the bridge of the song in my soft tune, I heard Rachel chime in. Rhiannon rings like a bell through the night, wouldn't you love to love her? I stopped to look at Rachel, taking in my environment. She was beautiful in the mosaic of nature at its peak, and she was an enigma I got to call mine. Every time you sing, I fall further in love with you, I said to her, catching the glint of her steel grey eyes. An alabaster hand shyly reached for my face and pushed back a tuft of my grizzly brown locks and tucked them behind my ears. You're the reason I sing, babe, she said with a delicate smile. Just then I heard a voice, as smooth and clear as Rachel's. And wouldn't you love to love her? I looked at Rachel, but her face was still. I darted my head around the trail, but there was no one. Hello? Who's there? I said firmly, yanking Rachel behind me. I could feel Rachel shaking like a pup left out in the rain as the demeanor of the forest completely shifted. I noticed the birds no longer performed for us. Come on, let's go, I said firmly. Takes to the sky. I noticed that the voice didn't just sound like Rachel. It was Rachel. Rachel still walked quietly, trailing behind me, led by the rest toward the end of the trail. We were at least an hour out from our car, but if we hurried on the loop, we would be okay. I then realized the humming was my own voice, and my heart froze. The noise was getting louder. Come on, Rachel, I said loudly as I dragged her behind me. Come on, Rachel, the voice said in a rushed tone. Rachel began to cry, and we started running down the trail. I looked to the sky. It was abnormally dark. We had arrived around 11 a.m, and it was already dim? Hadn't we only been here an hour? It continued to hum Rhiannon, louder and louder, and Rachel's sobs began to crescendo. Then, whatever it was began to imitate her sob, and a memory fell upon me. I was tucked in my bed at my Nana's house, a tiny room with a small bed pressed snugly in the corner. The blankets were an oppressive wool, and much too hot. Banana insisted I use them. The frail woman sat on my bed, running her bony fingers through my dense hair. Her wire glasses reflected light onto me, and the candle she had lit illuminated her red hair to look like fire burning just for me. Nana was in her 80s, yet she always retained that fiery hair. Eileen, my beautiful girl, would you like a story of our homeland before bed? Nana said in a sing-song voice. America is my homeland, Nana, I said stubbornly, rehashing an argument I'd heard my big sister Roanne have with Nana. Nana's face turned deeply sad for a moment, but then she forced a smile and pinched my cheek. You were born here, little Eileen, but your blood is from Scotland, just like mine, Nana said, voice dripping with that deep, undeniable accent. Fine, homeland stories are better anyway, I said, giggling at the end and smiling at Nana. There was a girl with a little curl. Nana always said at the beginning of stories, taking a long nailed finger and twirling my hair into a curl. And she liked to take walks near the wood. She liked to whistle as loud as she could, and wake the sleeping bird. But then one day, it wasn't her whistle they heard. She joined by the voice of another. She whistled louder, trying to drown out the other, but like the bird, it demanded to be heard. And louder it got. The girl broke out in song till her cheeks were hot, singing her song the whole walk long, till she lost all her air. She was blue in the face, but did not care. She continued to sing her song. The voice got louder. The girl knew something was wrong. She broke out in screams and took off, but she fell and started to cough. Curled up on the grass, it began to scream, voice full of brass. It got in her ear. She began to hear the scream of a banshee in her head. Soon, the little girl was dead. And if you go into the wood, I think you could, depending on your choices, hear two voices humming in your head. Nana would finish the story by humming as she kissed my head and tucked me in. I was pulled back to reality as the sobs strengthened into wails of agony, as whatever was chasing Rachel and I definitely drew in closer. Rachel and I bounded down the darkening trail, turning corner after corner, never seeming to meet the end. Wails and sobs rang loud as a siren, as we joined in with our own sounds of misery and fear. Suddenly, I jolted forward as Rachel let go of my hand. I glanced behind to see a horrifying sight. Rachel was in the arms of a creature that pressed its face close to hers and screamed at a level that was beyond what any natural creature could create. The scream was so loud, I instinctively covered my ears as it let loose its yell. The creature was clearly some kind of woman, sunken holes in place of eyes, and row upon row of sharp teeth jutting from her mouth as she let out her scream. Her hair was long, wet and black as oil. The hands it bore were long and frail, dancing upon Rachel's cheekbones as it screamed into her. Then I saw the creature was not bound to the same physical earth as us. As it floated a foot above the ground, the deep red shroud she covered herself in ever so lightly resting upon the trail below her. Rachel began to scream in harmony with the thing, as blood poured from those once beautiful grey eyes, and the weight seemed to drip from Rachel's body as the creature seemed to suck the life out of Rachel right before my eyes. Rachel and what I figured must be the Banshee of Nana's warning did a dance before me, duetting a tumultuous tune of terror. Rachel began to float with the creature for a moment, before they both suddenly stopped. Rachel was grey and pale as the creature dropped her to the ground and looked at me. Rachel lay dead on the trail, staring at me with glassy eyes. I knew there was only one way to save myself as the creature turned its attention to me. I dug my keys out of my pocket and found the longest, sturdiest one. I jammed the key into my right ear and howled in pain as I twisted it around until it shattered my eardrum. The banshee began to imitate my howls of pain and descended on me, scooping me up into its hold. As it did, I desperately jammed the key into my left ear and twisted, shoved and dug into my eardrum. I began to lose consciousness, but as I did, I saw that the creature was screaming, although all I could hear was a dull ringing as I faded away. I woke at the end of the trail to some hikers jostling me awake and saying something I could not make out. I faded away again. I woke up again, now in hospital, and with my sister on one side and my 90-year-old Nana on the other. I did not know sign language yet, so they transcribed this all to me on a whiteboard by Rowan. As Nana held my hand and smiled warmly at me, "Eileen, we are so happy you're safe. You're okay." I nodded and smiled at Rowan. I tried to speak. "Rachel," I said, but I was not able to hear my own voice. Rowan furrowed her brow and scribbled on her board. "Search and rescue is looking for her. I'm sure we're going to find her." I frowned deeply, knowing they wouldn't find her. Rowan wrote some more and showed me. "Eileen, you lost your hearing somehow. Did something attack you?" I thought deeply before responding. I knew she wouldn't believe me if I had said the banshee ate my girlfriend and I had to deafen myself to escape. I looked at Nana, who was ever so lightly shaking her head. I looked at Rowan and shook my head. Rowan looked exasperated by my response and frustrated at her lack of understanding of the situation. She wrote once more on the whiteboard, "Gonna go talk to Dr. BRB. As she showed me, she got up and left my cramped hospital room. Nana's frail hand reached for the board. "I think I know what happened to you and Rachel. I'm sorry. I don't think she's coming back." Nana showed me before erasing and writing more as tears came to my eyes. "I'm proud of you for surviving. You may not be able to hear anymore, but now you'll see things as they are. Be careful with that skill." It has been a year since I lost Rachel. So today I went to pay my respects at our favorite trail. But the thing is, I saw Rachel. She looked just like the thing did, floating like an ethereal operatic singer, traversing the surrounding woods, diving and swooping down upon me as I walked the empty trail. I did my best to hum along with her, keeping her attention on me. She was still wearing what she was that day, although she was as white as a cloud in the sky, and her eyes had subsided to empty dark sockets. It was nice to see her, even if she was trying to kill me. I figured as long as I'm deaf, she can't hurt me. I only wish I could hear her humming along with me one more time. I wish I could look into those beautiful grey eyes one more time. I guess seeing her try to viciously condemn me to her own fate will have to be enough. Should you ever be walking on a trail near Shenandoah State Park, make sure you bring headphones. And if you hear a humming in the woods that isn't your own, run. Keep frosty.